We're broadcasting here in Boston for the National Conference on Media Reform before a live audience that's waking up early to be a part of this global broadcast. Craig Aaron and Malkia Cyril have been working very hard on this AT&T T-Mobile merger. Craig, talk about what this is all about. Explain what's happened.
Well, we've been talking about monopoly, and that's basically, or duopoly, that's what's forming in the wireless market. We're looking at the second biggest company, AT&T, trying to merge with the fourth biggest company, which is T-Mobile, to create a new giant company. And if this merger were to go through, AT&T and Verizon would dominate 80% of the market for your wireless mobile phone. Completely unprecedented. You can look at any other major industry and those levels of concentration aren't there. And what it's going to mean for you, like a lot of these issues, you're going to be paying more. You're going to have fewer choices. If you want to take that phone that you own and take it to another carrier, you're simply not going to have that option. So what we're looking at is there's sort of been this myth of competition, and it's been even worse in the wireless space where, oh, you've got, 3 or 4 or 5 choices. And as soon as they were able to keep these rules like net neutrality from being applied to wireless phones, they start merging, they start concentrating. As we all know, this wireless connectivity, that's the future. That's how so many of us are going to be getting on the internet if we're not already, is through those mobile devices. And if we only have those 2 choices, that is an immense amount of power in the hands of 2 giant companies that have said they want to discriminate, that haven't hesitated to raise prices, that haven't hesitated to spy on their users or open up the back end so that the government can do so. That's what's happened again and again, and yet here they are coming to Washington saying, oh, this deal is inevitable, you have to let it go through, this is the only thing, we have to compete. And the people that lose in the end are going to be those individual subscribers, phone users, everybody who hopes to be able to afford a wireless phone, afford an internet connection. It's going to be that much harder if this deal is allowed.
And where does it look like it's going?
Well, it's still very early. So this deal was just announced. I think it was met with a lot of criticism, and not just from media reform and media policy people. The Economist magazine trashed the deal. The New York Times trashed the deal as too much power in too few hands. But it will be up to the Justice Department and to the Federal Communications Commission. And we'll see what they begin to do. There's reason to be concerned. I mean, they just signed off on the mega Comcast-NBC merger, and that was a complicated one. It was vertical integration. It was about owning the content and the distribution. This one's a little easier to understand. Number 2 wants to buy number 4 to become number 1 and not really leave you with any choices. So it's going to take, though, lots of public pressure on Congress, on the FCC. If we're going to actually stop a deal like this, it's going to have to come from the public. Because if we just hope the regulators will figure out, if we leave it up to the lobbyists, this thing will get done faster than you can imagine.
And what about that sign-off on the Comcast-NBC merger? Because obviously this is a trend now. The cable companies, we saw, for instance, in New York City, Cablevision ended up buying Newsday. So on a larger scale, then Comcast buys not only NBC, but NBC, Universal, right, Telemundo, a huge corporation of content, as well as being the providers. The impact on the kind of news and information and entertainment the American people receive.
Oh yeah, we're all living in it right now. This is the new face of media monopoly. I mean, when Ben Bagdikian wrote his famous book, there were 50 companies that probably controlled most of what we watch, see, hear, and read every day. Now maybe we're down to 5 or 6, and they're all trying to merge with each other. So there's this day coming soon where you could have, Comcast, AT&T, Pizza Hut, Taco Bell, all lined up together under one giant corporate umbrella. And what you end up with is watered down content. You end up with no competition in local markets to see, what's out there happening on the news. You end up with the same cookie cutter content from coast to coast. We saw this happen, for example, in radio back in the 90s. You used to be able to drive across the country everywhere you go. You'd hear a local accent. You'd hear local music. You'd hear local personalities. That went away because of these policy decisions. Now we're playing on a much larger field, and these companies want to control your entire experience, which is going to come through the internet. That'll be your TV, your radio, your phone, how you actually communicate with your friends and family. They want that all under that one corporate umbrella where they can decide which websites work, which get the best kind of service, and find lots and lots of ways to charge you a lot more money.